So I've had the iPhone 13 Pro Max for over a week, and I use it in what I consider a real case scenario. In other words, not just walking around the house or driving around town. I actually took it on a trip with me to Los Angeles and really kind of put it through the paces. I feel like I now know exactly what to expect from this phone for the next year. Unlike, a lot of reviews you'll see, which are not really done kind of in real world scenarios, I really feel confident in telling you exactly how I feel about the iPhone 13 Pro Max, whether it fits in with your life or not, if there's a better option or not, and I'll tell you all about it right after this.
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. Today we're going to talk about the iPhone 13 Pro Max and how I fared with it for a week on a business trip. So I just got back from LA from a conference called Vid Summit, which is a collection of a bunch of creators on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram to learn more about the platforms in which we create. I'll just go ahead and put this out of the way. Everyone who came to the conference had to have a negative test that day or they could not participate. So just for the people who are wondering, everyone was negative of COVID that particular day. That aside, I was able to use this in an environment which I consider kind of tough. Now, the reality is I really wanted to test the iPhone 13 Pro Max's battery. The last time I was really knocked out and really impressed by a battery in an iPhone or any phone at all was the 11 Pro Max. That's right, not the 12 Pro Max, but the 11 Pro Max, where I took it to Las Vegas, did a lot of pictures and video, and the battery lasted me in a very tough environment. LA, at least where I was also a very tough environment. And I'll explain why and how the battery on this thing lasted, as well as the rest of the functionality of the phone. Now, I've done a lot of content on the iPhone 13 Pro Max before it came out, so if you like that sort of thing, hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that like button if you're one of my subscribers already. I appreciate you. Because to me, there's really only one power feature in this phone, and it is the battery. It's really a phenomenal battery, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the regular performance of the phone. Now, the 120 hertz screen, which I talked about before, and I said that maybe you shouldn't upgrade if that's the only reason you're upgraded. I saw a lot of people in the comments saying that that was one of the reasons that they upgraded. And some people are super excited, and some people have gotten their phones and say, yeah, you see the difference. Well, that's fine. Do I see a difference? I mean, yeah, I suppose it's there, but it's not exactly something that makes me want to pay hundreds of dollars more over a phone I would have previously. I think sometimes to see the real difference, you have to use this first and then go backwards onto a phone with 60 hertz. We're seeing a lot of comments from people who have done that, and they really can tell the difference there. So I've been using my 13 Pro Max for an entire week, and I haven't turned on my 12 Pro Max until right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that very thing. I've been using this. I'm used to the 120 hertz display here for the first time ever. I'm just going to do it right in front of you. Will I see the difference on the 12 Pro Max? Now, when I was coming from the 12 Pro Max, I mentioned that the difference between this and that wasn't that great. But in fairness, getting used to 120 hertz may actually make a difference. I've always said that the 60 hertz of any iPhone was really so smooth, I didn't think there would be much of a difference visually, but some of you disagreed. So let's try it right here. So here's my 120 hertz here. And for the first time, I'm using the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And I mean, sure, I guess I see a difference. I guess. Yeah, there's a difference. But again, I don't know that I could put a dollar amount difference on what I see here. It's just not significant enough. And I'll repeat what I said last time, which is the Galaxy Z Fold 3's 120 hertz display was absolutely phenomenal. I saw it I could see the 120 hertz from the get-go. Now, we do know that there's a couple of bugs that they found not only in third-party apps, but also in the core animations for the iPhone 13 Pro Max and 120 hertz, and Apple says they'll fix that. Maybe it'll look different then. Regardless, again, it's not one of the features that I think is the breakout feature that makes me really want to keep this. And the camera. Well, this is interesting. So obviously the camera is supposed to be improved. The AI behind it is improved. And the lens itself is improved on some of these cameras. What's really interesting to me is for most people, I think the average consumer, they're going to see a difference and say it's better. I took a shot the first night I was in California with an iPhone 12 Pro Max and of course, my 13 Pro Max. And here's the difference. Here's the 12 Pro Max at a very kind of underlit area outside. And then the 13 Pro Max, which is obviously brighter. And I think your average consumer would say that looks better. But interestingly, things like the sky, I actually prefer on the 12 Pro Max, where other aspects of the picture from the 13 Pro Max, I think, are better. So while this was shot in auto, that's how most people are going to take pictures. I really feel like in the dark areas, the places that aren't well lit, it's kind of a toss-up. Like, if you like a more contrasty image, you might want to go with the 12 Pro Max, but the 13 brightens things up. And I think most people will just think that that's a better image. Tell me what you think in the comments below. But generally speaking, the 13 Pro Max, even in all these very dimly lit areas, was on fire, doing some really great videos and pictures. All these images you're seeing were in a very darkly, almost not even lit area, and they look amazing. Inside the conference, of course, you see a bunch of pictures with friends and stuff, and they look great. I mean, there's nothing surprising here. The camera is great. It is slightly different than the 12 Pro Max, especially in darker areas. I would say improved, although maybe you wouldn't agree. But it is a spectacular camera and continues to be that, even with things like cinematic mode and that sort of thing, things you may only use once or twice. But again, the cameras have never been an issue with the iPhone series of phones. They're just fantastic. I've been using it for B-roll on my channel for a long time. So I knew that was going to be fine and that was going to be great. And it was. So with cameras aside, what else is there? Well, really, to be honest, any of the other little features that are supposed to come or that are already on the phone, to me, are kind of inconsequential, because at the end of the day, none of that stuff matters if the battery's dead. And that was one thing I didn't want to have to worry about. And I didn't have to. This thing is a battery beast in every conceivable way. Let me just be clear. I was in a very bad situation where Wi-Fi was terrible and cellular service was terrible. If you've ever been in an area where you have bad Wi-Fi and bad cell service, you will notice your phone drains very fast. This is something you'll see in Las Vegas, some parts of Los Angeles, and at least where I was really close to the airport. Everything was terrible. The Wi-Fi in the the hotel I was in was terrible, and the coverage was abysmal, just terrible. My friend Viper had his Verizon. We did a speed test. He had under 1 megabit a second. Just terrible. Even though the drain was real, and I was getting about 4.5 hours of on-screen time, so all the more I really needed it per day, I would typically take the phone off around 6:30, 7 a.m. in the morning and put it back on the charger no earlier really than 10 p.m. Sometimes a little bit earlier than that, but not much, and certainly sometimes a little bit later than that. And never once did I go under 40% battery life. Now, you might think, well, 4 hours of on-screen time is not that much. And for you, maybe that's the case. Although I would argue, if you're looking at your phone for 5 or 6 or 8 hours a day, are you really living life? But that's neither here nor there. The power consumption that this thing was handling, which I know that type of environment. I've had Android phones. I've had all types of phones in that hotel and in ones in Las Vegas. And I know the drain you get. The fact that this thing never got under 40% was shocking. Now, when you come back to an environment like my house, where you have strong Wi-Fi and a good cell signal, you start to see how powerful the battery really is. Case in point, today, I took this phone off the charger at 7:18 a.m. today. Right now, it is 5:28 p.m., same day, just under 12 hours. And while I haven't used the phone a lot, like about an hour or so of screen on time, I have been streaming audio and such, which the screen is not on for. So it is being used. And right now, at 5:28 p.m., I have 89% battery life after being off the charger for over 10 hours. 89% battery life. What? The reality is that battery life rules all, because none of the features you have make any difference if you can't use them because your battery is dead. This thing has shown me without a shadow of a doubt that you can absolutely rely on it. And this is why I'm using an iPhone as my main phone. Not because it's exciting. Some people have asked, hey, you said all the iPhones are boring. Yeah, they're not typically exciting to me anymore. I mean, there's nothing going on here that excites me, but I can rely on it, and I like that. Not everything that you like has to be exciting. I mean, or even use. For example, my keys are kind of boring. They're just keys, but I need them, so I'm going to use them. Like, just because something's boring doesn't mean it's not good. And in this particular case, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is really good. But all the standard things apply. If you're not a fan of iOS 15 isn't necessarily going to change your mind. If you like some of the freedoms you have on Android, then you probably aren't going to be switched over with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Maybe something that looks more like an Android phone. Hopefully the iPhone 14 looks a little bit cooler. But it's probably not the phone that's going to convert you. Having said that, it's a tremendous phone, definitely in the battle for one of the top phones of the entire year, just because of the reliability, the absolute speed in which the operating system works, the 120 hertz, The battery life, the camera, everything about it is absolutely the way you've seen many people review it. And now that I've taken it out and used it in an environment that I know is rough, I know is absolutely brutal on a phone, and it came through shining like a champion, I can rely on it. And for me as a tool, it's a tool to me. I've got to be able to rely on it, and I can. The iPhone 13 Pro Max gets my absolute stamp of approval. I'm super happy to be using it. And while I may not think it's the most exciting thing in the world, it's good old reliable. So you might be wondering, do I regret upgrading from the iPhone 12 Pro Max to the 13 Pro Max? As it's one of the things that I said that you probably shouldn't do if you're an owner of the iPhone 12 series of phones. And I think by and large, that advice still stays the same. If you have something that's in the last 2 years, there's not a lot of reason to go up. I mean, obviously the battery life is better, which is a huge deal, but I don't remember a lot of people complaining about battery life on the iPhone 12 series of phones, minus the mini, which in that case, maybe you do. I don't think it's a far reach to say that the iPhone 13 Pro Max took some of the weaknesses of the 12 Pro Max and made them better, but it's not an even trade, especially when it comes to the camera, where it outperforms it in most cases, but in dark situations, you might prefer the other look. So what does this mean for you? Should you get the iPhone 13 Pro Max? Well, as you may have seen other people talk about other phones in the iPhone 13 lineup, you don't have to get something this big to get the good battery life. Even the iPhone 13, the normal version, gets good battery life. And I suspect that no matter which phone you choose, you're going to be super happy with that. And the performance of the cameras and stuff speak for themselves. Listen, at the end of the day, this is just a tool. There's nothing particularly special about it. It looks just like the iPhone 12 Pro or Pro Max line of phones. And the operating system is pretty much the same between this and that. There's a couple of new features, the screen, the camera has a new lens, and that sort of thing. But overwhelmingly, the thing that makes this the phone of the year is the battery. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Leave me a comment below, tell me what is your favorite feature about the iPhone 13 Pro Max or whichever of the iPhone 13 phones you picked up this year. And I'll see you next time. Peace and love.